Greetings. You're listening to the official Flourish Media podcast with Flourish Media founders Vivian Oladin and Dr. Tracy Timberlake. Listen in for marketing training and development tips from two ladies called the leaders in luxury learning. Get the tea on building a scalable, investor-ready business from the world's most accessible, women-focused business funding organization.
Welcome back to the Flourish Media podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Timberlake. This is Vivian Oladin. We're the co-founders of Flourish Media, the Flourish Media Conference, and Behind the Leaf. Today, we're talking about something really important. We've been having this conversation all season around the conference, pitching, getting investor funding, and one of the ways that we're going to talk about, or at least one of the techniques that's a part of it, is storytelling, captivating storytelling, which is so required when you're wanting to talk about your business, pitch it to investors for funding. So let's talk about the art of storytelling and how important it is when it comes to pitching.
Yes, indeed. So every single business, every idea is solving a problem. And so we want to understand how that problem impacts people. And the best way to do that is to emotionally connect with our investors and to share, why is this touching to you? Why is it important to you? Why does this need to be something that is addressed? You know, when it comes to the Behind the Leaf and starting our relationship and what we've been able to do over these years, it all started with a Black Lives Matter march. Honestly, we were having lunch at and an investor was watching the television just like I was, and there was the day that the two police officers were killed in Texas. And there was a woman who was a part of the news, and she had a business. She was a minority woman. And the reporter turned and asked her, how are you handling having all these people walk in front of your business? And the energy was as if she would be bothered by so many people disrupting, people being able to make money that day and all these things. And the person that we happened to be sitting with at the time said, you know what? People don't care about people anymore. They only care about money. And I truly thought that I was breaking the ice, that I was being so funny when I said, well, what are you going to do? Give them your money? And that was because this person runs $1 billion business. They have a lot of money. But what I didn't know is that that same person was married to a minority woman and since divorced, but had 2 children with that woman and was so well versed on what happens when women get access to money. Started rattling off all these statistics. And because we were able to make that connection, both of us caring about what happens to women, caring about people, having that synergy that we put people ahead of money, we're able to develop that relationship into what it has become over all of these years. But sharing that exact same opportunity with other people is how we ultimately were able to raise the amount of money that we raised at that time. But it is the reason why we're able to raise money today and to continue Behind the Leaf as an organization.
And I think it's really interesting, and what people don't recognize is that we have told that story probably hundreds of times over the course of 8 years. The story does not change, right? The story, our origin story of how the Flourish Media Conference came together has not changed. And the reason why is because the story is the story. Like, there's nothing to add to it. That's exactly what happened. And a lot of the times people don't recognize how powerful the same story being told over and over and over again can be. You know, I think about like Oprah. We all know Oprah's story because she said it 1,000 times. We all know what she came from. We all know she was molested. We all know she had a child, that died. We all know how they told her she was ugly when she was on air the first time. We all know her story because she said it so often. But that is her origin story. And the power of a story that can outlast, a year, 2 years, outlast one interview is so poignant, especially when you're trying to build a brand in an industry where stories are really the most captivating thing to get people kind of on board. It's the thing that latches people into your vision.
Yes, for sure. And so as you are thinking about the origin story, really think about, what is the problem I'm solving, and why did it hit me in such a way that I'm putting all this energy into building an entire business around it that can scale? Because we all know you can create a hobby, you open an Etsy shop, and then you have a business for a couple of weeks or whatever, you make a couple dollars and it's great. But when you want to scale a business, that means you're going to hire people, you're going to call lawyers, you're going to make insurance commitments, you're going to travel, you're going to say no to personal opportunities and, children's events and family events and all kind of things because you want to grow this business. And so this needs to be something that you really care about, and you need to be open to sharing that with not only the investors in our room, but the investors everywhere, meaning your clients and customers, all the champions for your brand need to know what that origin story is.
Yeah, and just like you said in the notes that we were having as we were preparing for this episode, is it's not a memoir, it's not your life story, it's an origin story. And so, at what point would you say they need to get to the meat?
I would say what the trigger point that made you open the business. So of course there's a lot of other things that went on, but they're not important. You know, if you only have, and which you only do, have 5 minutes at the Flourish Media Conference, and a portion of that 5 minutes is about the problem you solve and why you started the business, then it really needs to be maybe 5 sentences long, maximum. If you had to write it down, why did you start this business? What is the origin story? What is that
Practice.
thing?
And practice, I would say 30 seconds. Practice 30 seconds of telling the story. Can you break it down into a 30-second storytelling where there's an arc, where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, where there's some sort of emotional pull? Because even when Vivian was telling you the story of the Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of things that sort of, you can feel the emotion, you feel the tension. Vivian said, I wanted to break the ice. I thought I was being funny. So you kind of see and hear her own thought process in that. Can you do that in 30 seconds? Because the art of a good story is that. And by the way, it's not just for the Flourish Media Conference. Like, you want to be able to tell the story. Like we said, we've told this. We've never pitched at the Flourish Media Conference. That's one thing to write. We don't pitch there. But we have certainly had the conversation in many different rooms with many different types of investors or partners, because we want them on board with the mission that we have at Flourish and at Behind the Leaf. So if you want the same thing, then you need to be able to have that same 30-second conversation in many different environments.
Oh, yes. And so one of the things that we're always very excited about when it comes to the Flourish Media Conference is that we choose grant winners from the attendees who come to the conference. That's virtual attendees and in-person, physically in the room attendees. We give away 4, and I'm sure over the years, and if you're listening to this later, they'll be for a lot more money and maybe a lot more frequently. But at this moment, we give 4. And those people, they get a list of over 100 grants that are designed for women-owned businesses. And so that means you're going to tell that exact same origin story hopefully hundreds of times. If you're one of these people who's serious, apply to every single one of these opportunities. And we know that there's been grant winners over the years who have taken their same story that they told at Flourish, took that same confidence that they received, the feedback that they've gotten from our investors in our community, and they've gone on to win 6 figures and more of money just from the structure that we provided at the Flourish Media Conference. So really think about that origin story. Don't tell your whole life story. Do not tell a sob story. You need to tell what triggered you to start this business.
Yes. And be honest about it. Don't make something up. Like, you know, because again, if you're going to be telling the story over and over again, you need to sort of commit to what the story is. And I would definitely say writing it down, like Vivian said, having some sort of guide, and then practice before you even get to the Flourish Media Conference. Practice with your best friend, practice with your spouse, practice with your kids, practice with a neighbor, practice being able to deliver it, and then see what they say. Does it communicate what you want it to communicate? Is it too, sob story leaning? Is it too disconnected leaning? There's a lot of different ways that you can make sure that the story is exactly what it needs to be before you get to the conference.
And how do you know if you're making an impact before you come to the Flourish Media Conference? Well, we have a really nice slide presentation that we were gifted from Amazon. Amazon has AWS has a program called Startups Underrepresented Founders and Investors Team. And Rich, who leads that team, gave us the slide presentation, and it's around promotion-oriented question versus prevention-oriented questions. And so these are the type of questions that should indicate to you that the investor or the person listening to you is interested in what you're saying, or they're actually not. They think that you can't actually accomplish this thing. And it's an awesome presentation. I definitely recommend that you join our private Facebook group so that you can see the actual presentation with all of the notes. But for the sake of this podcast, here's an example. I talk about a tech program, an app that I want to develop. And after the investor listens to my presentation, they say, wow, that's really incredible. How are you going to add more people to download this app? How are you going to get more people on the app? Is that a preventive or promotional question?
Right. And you have to know the difference.
You really do.
You do.
And so if it's a promotional question, that means that this person believes that you have the capability to grow the business, and they are asking you questions because they want to see the vision that you see. If it is a preventive question, then that means they're trying to say to you, I don't understand how you can grow this. So for that example with that app question, your job, regardless of what kind of question it is to make sure that you're showing your capability to make a vision a reality.
Right.
So you can say in your response, as a promotional response, I for sure can grow this because I've been able to develop my audience online from nothing to 100,000 followers to 100,000 followers. I've had X number of downloads that are in this demographic and that demographic. So I know that people are interested in this, and I know that I'm going to be able to grow it. If you're hearing a preventative response, then you can say something like, I hear what you're saying. Are you asking because, and then you can fill in the blank, because you do want them to clarify. It's a dialogue. And that's the beautiful thing about our conference being a matchmaker. It is so low pressure.
And I think it's important to also recognize they're going to ask questions because there's often hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the line. They're not asking you, it's not personal. They're not questioning you as a person. They don't know you. They have no idea who you are. Yeah. They know your business because you've talked about it for 5 minutes. But sometimes we get really offensive when people are talking about our business because it's like our brainchild that we're like, how dare you question me? How dare you ask how I can scale this? They're not doing that. It's not an offensive question. It's one of the other. They're asking you, can you promote it to grow it? Or what I'm hearing is preventative things that are actually blocking you from being able to do that. But your ability to answer the question is often going to determine what comes next in the conversation with the investor.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And so for women-owned businesses, we are not often actually listened to in these environments. And so what will happen is that as you're growing your business, as you're getting deeper into the Behind the Leaf community and the master classes, as we're putting you in these different environments to elevate your tribe, you are going to come to know yourself in such a way that is going to be very life-changing. Yeah. You're going to understand, oh my goodness, I don't know why I was offended by that, or I didn't know why I was triggered by that. I don't know why I was really excited by that, or this person just lit me on fire, and I didn't know that I could be excited in this way. And as you're developing all of those things, that's why you need community, so that you can talk those things through. Yeah,
because the last thing you want to do is sort of blow up in the front of the investor, right? You can pull somebody else aside at the conference, somebody in the community, and say, hey, they asked me this and here's how I felt. And you can have those conversations kind of like sidebar, not in front of them. But we want to just prepare you that these are the kinds of questions that they're going to ask. And that's a good thing. Like if they're asking you anything, it's probably good. It's a good thing if they're asking you questions because that means they're slightly interested.
Yeah. The biggest red flag is if you dumped your heart out.
And they go, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it gets you thinking about your story and how you can tell it in a way that's going to garner interest from the investors and not just the investors, but really everybody in the room, because if it's not an investor, it's a consumer. And that's exactly what you want.
Exactly what you want. So if you want to stay connected with us, you can go to flourishmediaconference.com. We have some links down below to support this conversation, some resources that you can take advantage of. Always invite you to join our free private Facebook group. And, if you're enjoying this, share it. Share it with other women business owners in your community, with your tribe, with your network. And if you want to stay connected with all the things Flourish Media and Behind the Leaf, you can follow us at Flourish Media Co. on all the things.
Bye.
Behind the Leaf. Never miss an episode, and subscribe to the official Flourish Media podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. If this podcast sparked your curiosity or made you think of a fellow creative who could really use these gems, share it and help them flourish too.